he's probably going at the end of round 4 or the beginning of round 5 in most drafts. So I don't want to take him at 312. I'm looking to take him in the middle of round 4.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Football Freaks. I'm Jason, he's Vaz, and today we are going into a Dynasty Startup rankings list, basically for the first couple of rounds, how you want to start up. Like for people that are in Dynasty startups coming up, I think this is really going to help out in terms of where you might ideally want to pick, as well as what you might want to end up with. Obviously, a very important part of Dynasty Leagues is how you draft, because this is going to be your team, the foundation of your team for the next little while, and you really want to set yourself up properly for the future with this. Vaz, you've put together your rankings for not just positional rankings, but also overall rankings and tiers as well. So this should be helpful for people to be able to get a visual to do this. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to post your rankings in our Facebook group right now. So there will be a link. If you look in the descriptions below, click on the Facebook group, and in there you will see the rankings that Vaz has put together. So that should help you follow along with what we're talking about right now. Anything else that you want to mention before we get into the first few players in your rankings and your tiers?
Okay, so if you are starting a Dynasty startup, I think it's important that you want to set it up as a slow draft. This is really important because it allows you to move around the board however you see fit. And then, you know what? It's just more fun. There's a lot more trades in the slow draft. Don't join a Dynasty startup that has like 2 minutes per pick and you finish it in 2 hours. It's not the way to go. I would highly suggest do a slow draft, 8 to 12 hours per pick. It'll take 2 or 3 weeks, but you know what? That just makes it a whole lot more fun. And then, you don't have to worry about like people aren't available at this time or at this date. Yeah, just do a slow draft over sleeper, take your time with it. And a lot of trading happens on the clock. So that's the way to go.
Yeah. And we did the very second video that we ever created was about a startup draft strategy that Vaz calls the productive struggle, where you're trying to acquire future first round picks and you're trading back. I've used this strategy before. He's used this. It is very, very good. And we're going to make another updated video on that strategy. We might talk about it a little bit here and there in today's video, but for the most part, we are going to save that as a whole new video coming up very soon. So do note that we're going to talk about that a little bit, but we'll have a more in-depth version of that later on. So then, without any further ado, let's go into the first round and pick number 1. I know, Vaz, you have listed as Josh Allen. Is this a clear cut? You absolutely want the first overall pick? Or maybe a better way to ask is, where do you see the tier cutoff in terms of the first tier of a startup in Dynasty?
Okay, yeah. So I guess I'll mention that the way I liked a lot of people when they choose their draft slots for a startup, right? They randomize it. And that's fine if you want to go that route. I really like doing fab bidding for your draft spot, because what that allows you to do is to choose where you want to be in the draft. You can bid a certain amount of fab everybody starts with 1,000 fab. You can bid a certain amount of fab to choose where you want to start in your draft, right? I really like that, but I don't know how popular that is across the board, but that allows you to pick the draft spot you want to be in. And for me, in almost every startup I've ever done, I always want to be in the 101 spot. The reason for that is if I end up selecting a player there, I'm getting Josh Allen, who I think is just a cheat code at QB in the most important position. And then preferably, because I always do the productive struggle approach, or I always want to do the productive struggle approach, it allows me a lot of leverage to trade back from that 101 spot and accumulate more value in doing so.
Yeah, I have to agree. If you're going to be doing the productive struggle, it definitely makes a lot of sense to be picking 101. Therefore, you can trade back from 101. And we'll talk about that, like I said, a little bit more. But then if you weren't going to do the productive struggle, so if you're planning on keeping the players that you draft in the first round, in the second round, in the third round, do you still want the 101, or is there a place that you'd rather be at the start of the next tier or something like that where you get a good guy that you get on the way back in the second round, as an example?
Yeah. Listen, even if I am doing the productive struggle, I want to be at 101 because so
Even if
even
you're
if
not
I'm
doing,
not,
yeah,
yeah, like okay, I should say like even if I am doing the productive struggle, I might still select Josh Allen at 101 because he is such a significant cheat code at quarterback. So like whether it's regardless of whether I'm doing it or not, I want to be at 101. Josh Allen is a massive cheat code. So I want Josh Allen on my team. And but like that being said, I think there's an advantage to like being at the end of the first round, and I can get into that a little bit as well. Like I have Marvin Harrison ranked as my 13th overall player, and I really want to leave the second round with him if possible because I think there's a pretty significant tier from Marvin Harrison to the next best receiver. So if I could grab like a quarterback I really like and pair him with Marvin Harrison, who I think is like a tier one wide receiver, then I really like that option too. But that being said, like I think there's such a huge gap between Josh Allen, who would be getting at the top of the round one, and then like say, I don't know, Kyler Murray, who I might be getting at the end of round one. There's such a huge gap there that I want that foundational piece in Josh Allen that I know I can slot it into my starting quarterback position for the next 10 years and is going to give me a huge leg up on my competition. I'm not as confident with, Kyler Murray or with Jordan Love, like somebody like that.
yeah. Let me know what you think of my strategy. Okay. So, in all drafts that I do, whether it be fantasy football, whether it be redraft, whether it's dynasty, whether it's baseball, I like to be dead smack in the middle. So if it's a 12 team superflex, a 12 team redraft, a 12 team whatever, then I want either pick 6 or 7. And for me, the reason for that is I don't want to have to wait 24 picks before my next pick if I feel that like it's going to help me to not reach for people because I feel like if I'm in the middle and I'm picking consistently every 12 picks, then if there's a person that's coming up, I feel like if I don't take this guy now, then I'm going to be screwed. And then, I got to wait 24 picks before that guy comes back to me. And then I get 2 picks. Like, does that kind of stuff bother you at all when you're picking 101 or 12, 13? Because like for me personally, I like to, like I said, I like to be in the middle so that I can, reach for a guy just a few picks if need be, rather than 8 or 10 picks.
I understand what you're saying, but listen, Jason, I do so much trading that doesn't even cross my mind. I know by the moment round three hits, I'll be like all over the board. I'll be in the middle of some rounds, and so it really doesn't matter. I want 101 every time, especially if there's no third round reversal. 100%, I want to be at the top of round one. If there's a third round reversal, then I'll start considering other slots. I think then it like evens out the playing field a little bit. But if there's no third round reversal, like 101 is such a huge advantage. So I want that every single time.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Let's take a look at the players you've got here. So I'll just quickly list them off in your ranks. You got Josh Allen, then Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, Caleb Williams, and then Jalen Hurt. Before your next non-quarterback, this is for 12-team Superflex Dynasty. You've got Justin Jefferson in at 8 after that. Is that where your tier is, or where's like the tier break for you?
Okay, so for me, like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are tier one, but I think it's like Josh Allen is tier one and Patrick Mahomes is like tier 1B, or like I should say like tier two. I think there's a significant difference between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, but I mean Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the NFL, so I'm so happy to have him as well. Um, and then I think like there's a tier of like Lamar and CJ Stroud. I think they're a tier two, and then I think Joe Burrow, Caleb Williams, and Jalen Hurts is a tier, probably a tier three of the quarterbacks. And I would probably throw Justin Jefferson to that tier as well. He's my number one receiver. And I think I'm taking him pretty much every time just after Jalen Hurts there. I actually had Jalen Hurts ahead of Caleb Williams, but I recently moved Caleb ahead of Jalen Hurts. So I'm taking Justin Jefferson at 8. And then at 9, I have Jordan Love. And then at 10 and 11, I have two other receivers, Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. And then at 12, to round out the first round, I have Kyler Murray.
Okay. Now, you said that when you start off, your always preference is 101, right? Is where you want to start. Let's say that you can't have 101 for whatever reason, then is the next favorite spot always 102 and then 103 and linearly back down all the way down to 12, or is there a point somewhere where it does matter to you in terms of where you want to pick?
Yeah, it definitely matters. I wouldn't say like I want to go two, then three, then four. No, like I have to consider my tiers at that point. If I can't get Josh Allen, because for me, the reason I want to be at 101 is because I want to get Josh Allen.
Okay.
Um, if I can't get Josh Allen, like I'm happy to take 102 and get Patrick Mahomes. And then like let's say I because I have Lamar Jackson and CJ Stroud pretty close, I'm pretty much happy with three or four. So I might consider four over three, especially because I have Lamar ahead of CJ Stroud. And I think almost everybody, like most other people have Stroud ahead of Lamar. So I
Yeah.
think I probably get Lamar at four or five. So I might take four there. And then same deal with Caleb. I have Caleb at six, and I think a lot of people probably have him at like eight or nine. So I might like take pick eight or something like that. But like I said before, I like pick 12 because I can get a quarterback like Jordan Love or Kyler Murray on the turn and then pair them with Marvin Harrison Jr. So if it's a third round reversal, I might be targeting pick 12 for this specific situation. I'm just trying to grab a quarterback to pair with Marvin Harrison Jr. at the turn, and then having the third round reversal uh, impact me in a positive way.
Yeah. Okay, so one of your favorite places would be 12 to end up with let's say Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. as a possible package. Certainly would be strong. Your first running back, you have an pick two of the second round as Breece Hall, and then right after that, Bijan Robinson. So no running backs in the first round, but you're fine with two within the first three picks of the second round.
Yeah. Okay. Let's get into this a little bit. I have Brees and Bijan there at 202 and 203,
Yeah,
but I'll say that I will probably almost never take a running back this high.
yeah.
Um, I have to find a place for them, and I think they deserve to be there. But like, I always want to go productive struggle, right? So like I value them at that range, but I like and like I said, I don't really want to take Kyler Murray at 112 because I think he has a little bit of risk. So I really, really would like to take like Marvin Harrison Jr. there and trade back from 112 to grab a different quarterback, maybe at the end of the second round or something like that. I always am thinking about in a startup accumulating future future draft picks to do the productive struggle approach, and I will never take a running back this high. So I like Brees Hall and Bijan Robinson here, but I'm not really considering them probably till like the end of round two in a startup.
Okay, so if someone were to take Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson at pick two or three of the second round, you're fine with them doing it. It's not
Yeah.
something that you would do. And let me just quickly explain the productive struggle a little bit more because we've mentioned it a couple of times. And for people who aren't familiar with it, the basic gist of what you're trying to do is you're tanking the first, maybe even the second year, and you're trying to have a goal of really imagine going through a rebuild to start your dynasty league. So when everyone else is trying to win in year one and perhaps even year two, you're saying, hey, I'm okay finishing dead last in year one, ending up with the 101 for the year after. And ideally, trying to acquire first round picks by trading back as much as you can. So any opportunity, like Vaz mentioned, where let's say he logically, for most people, would be drafting Breece Hall or Bijan Robinson, top running backs in those areas, you want to be trading back a round or two here or there in order to acquire first round picks the next year. So then your first round pick should be a high first round pick, a lottery or first overall, perhaps. And then you should end up, if you do it right, you should essentially end up with 4, 5, or 6 first round picks over the next 2 seasons while finishing, last or towards the bottom for those first 2 seasons. But you're ideally going to pick up a lot of the top rookies. Maybe not the top rookies, because if you're trading back, it's probably going to be tough to end up with guys like Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. But I think as an example for this year's situation, I would see like perhaps ending up with guys like maybe Roma Dunze, maybe Brock Bowers, but probably your Drake Mays, JJ McCarthy's, maybe Michael Penix Jr. Like those are the kinds of guys that you'd be drafting maybe in round 5 or 6, after you've acquired maybe 3 or 4 picks in those rounds from trading back so much. And then you've got like a bunch of first round picks for the next couple of seasons, and that becomes the core of your team. I think that's the general gist of what you're trying to do. You're not trying to win in year 1 and year 2, but you're just trying to really strengthen your team for the future, like you're doing a rebuild from the beginning. Anything you want to add to that, Vaz, in terms of what you're doing, like in a brief way for people?
Yeah, thought we weren't talking about the productive struggle here
No,
today, Jason.
no, I know,
Jeez.
no, I know. Like, I just wanted to give like a little for the people that don't know what it is. I just wanted to explain it
Yeah.
as briefly as I
Listen, like
could.
the productive struggle approach, it's the way to go. It really simplifies the draft, and I kind of disagree with what Jason said. I'm not like targeting rookies outright, okay? I'm just targeting value outright. So like I try to simplify the draft, and I'm always trying to accumulate value. So if it gets to like the point in the draft, let's say like round 6, where 12 rookies have gone at this point, I know that my pick is worth less than a future first round pick because at this stage of the draft, the second round rookies are coming off the board. So if I can trade my, 6-11, let's say, for a future first and a 10th round pick in the startup, I know that's a smash for me. So it really simplifies the draft in that sense. I'm always trying to accumulate value. And it also makes your first year really easy because you spend the entire first year just making trades and trying to accumulate more value in terms of draft picks and young players. And it's just really hard to like, it's really hard to miss. It's really hard to make mistakes because you're just always giving yourself a little bit of extra value in every situation and every trade. So it's really difficult to miss. So it's the proper way to go to build a true dynasty.
Yeah, and especially the argument I always make is when you have a startup and you have 12 teams that are trying to win in year 1, you basically have a 1 in 12 chance of winning in year 1. Whereas if you do the productive struggle from the get-go, you can make it a 1 in 11 chance for everybody else. But by year 3, you're not, in a 1 in 12 chance of winning because you have some teams that are already beginning a rebuild. So you're actually going to be competing more like a 1 in 8 chance to win. And among those 1 in 8 teams, you're going to be the youngest and perhaps one of the more powerful teams as well. Anyways, hopefully that kind of wraps it up in a nutshell as to what we're talking about when we keep mentioning the productive struggle. But getting back to the actual draft strategy for the startup, you've mentioned that you are trading your way around the draft board a lot, and that you don't own this or that pick. When you say that, what exactly are you talking about? What are you trying to do? What's an example of things that you're looking to do with those trades? Whether it is the productive struggle or not, like what sorts of things, how can you take advantage of someone that's less educated in that idea?
Yeah, okay. So I don't only trade back. There's mainly two types of trades I do, and it's trading back to accumulate future draft capital in terms of rookie picks and future drafts. I really love to do that. But then I also trade up a lot. But when I trade up, I try to swap draft positions. So like, and I understand that if you're trading up in rookie drafts, you always have to kind of like lose the trade. You always have to give up a little bit more to trade up. So I'm willing to do that to get into the bottom of a tier, for example. So if I'm looking to trade back, let's say I'm at the 212, okay? And I'm at the top of my tier, so I don't want to select here, okay? Now I'm looking to trade back to, let's say, round 4, where I can grab a tight end I really like. Like I'm really high on Hawkinson. I'd really love to grab Hawkinson in round 4. So maybe I can trade the 212 for like the 404 and grab a future first. That is something I would absolutely love to do. And I think I could get a guy I like TJ Hawkinson or Trey McBride or some tight end I'm really high on in round 4. And I have a pretty big tier there as well. So I'm confident I can get one. And I really like targeting a tight end in that spot. So I'll send out the 212 for a future first and a fourth round pick to almost every owner in that range of the fourth round. Okay. And I just hope one hits. And one usually does hit because often people do want to trade up and like everybody like undervalues rookie picks in a startup, except for me, it seems.
And
So
me.
I so I really like to do that. And then if I'm trading up, I don't give up future draft capital. What I'll do is like say I'm in round four and I'm sitting at 406 and I want to get up to 402. Okay. I'll take my 406 and my I don't know, five. It's really hard to think of the numbers, but I'll take my fourth and my fifth rounders to swap positions, and then
Mhm.
I'll throw in my seventh rounder as well and swap in the seventh round as well. So he'll move up in round 5 and 7, and I'll move up only in round 4, for example. I like to do those kinds of swaps to move up.
Yeah, fair enough. When we look at position, so once again, you mentioned that you want to be drafting guys that are in the bottom of your tiers. So, once again, it's important when you're going into a startup draft that you have everybody in tiers, right? Like make before you start your draft, make your own list or make sure that you're looking at someone's list, whether it's our cheat sheet or someone's cheat sheet, but make sure that it has tier separators so you know who you're targeting at the bottom of those tiers then, right?
Yeah, and then also even more important than that is be mindful of how the community values these guys. So like
Yes.
I know I have TJ Hawkinson at 312, but I know that's way too high in comparison to where the community has him. I
Yeah.
think he's probably going at the end of round 4 or the beginning of round 5 in most drafts. So I don't want to take him at 312. I'm looking to take him in the middle of round 4, right? He's coming off an injury, so there's a little bit of risk there. So the middle of round 4, even the end of round 4, I think you can grab him there.
Yeah. Do you ever have a situation where you miss out on a guy because you value, like you knew that you wanted him, but you waited
Yeah.
too long, somebody else took him? Then have you
Yeah.
ever tried to or been able to trade for the guy after he was picked during the draft or shortly
Uh,
after?
that happens all the time, Jason. We play in 14-man leagues mostly, so that there's even more potential for that, right?
Yeah.
That happens all the time. And no, once a guy's selected, it's going to be too expensive to get them. But I don't worry about that. Like, listen, I don't like to trade up often because I like to wait till I'm on the clock because trading back will always get you more value. So I always like to, if possible, wait till I'm on the clock and explore trading back because even more than grabbing a guy at the bottom of a tier who I really like, I'd even prefer more to trade back, add the future draft capital, and still like grab a different guy. I know I'll find somebody else I like later on in the draft as well.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about tight ends because I feel like right now, going into this next season, this is about as confident as I've ever felt in a lot of different tight ends. I think if we look back maybe 2 or 3 years, then I'd have maybe 3 or 4 tight ends that I kind of want. And if I miss out on those guys, I feel like I'm kind of screwed. And then I'm not going to take a tight end for until like the 10th or 12th round, something really, really late because I just feel like there's too big of a gap. But I feel like right now there's like 7, 8, 9, 10, maybe like different tight ends that I feel are close enough together in their tiers that I feel like it's almost as if you don't want to take the first couple and then you're kind of waiting for a bunch of them to go and then you kind of want to sneak in at the end of that tier. Is that how you feel about the tight end class right now? Or are there ideal tight ends that you'd like to end up at or that you like? Is there an ideal round that you want to be taking a tight end or not?
Yeah. Okay. So again, without trying to mention the productive struggle too much,
Yeah.
I just recently did my first 7 rounds for the startup rankings, right? So
Mhm.
what is that? My top 72 players. And is that correct? That's no, my top 84 players.
84. Yeah.
Okay. And in those rankings, I had, I believe, let me see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I had 8 tight ends only. Okay. I had 7 tight ends in the first 4 rounds, and then I had Travis Kelce, I believe, in round 6. So I want to grab a tight end in round 4 because I really value the position. I like having that the leg up at that position in a league because it just gives you such an advantage to have a plug and play tight end, right? So I'm targeting a tight end in round four. I like to solidify that position, even if I am doing a productive struggle approach, because you know what? A young tight end will stay on your dynasty team for 10 years. They have a longer shelf life than receivers. They have a much longer shelf life than running backs. They have a shelf life similar to quarterbacks. So like I like to fill out my quarterback position and my tight end position first when I'm doing the productive struggle approach. Receiver position as well. I try to totally fade running backs if possible because they get you a lot of points, and that's points are your enemy in that strategy, right? So if possible, I try to fade running backs, and I'm trying to target one of these top tier tight ends. So I really like targeting one of them in round four here because, of course, I don't really want to get Travis Kelce for this strategy.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so it doesn't bother you as much that there's so many good young tight ends. You know what I mean? Like I feel like because there's so many, I can kind of wait on them to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I guess maybe, if everyone's thinking the same thing or
No,
not.
I definitely don't want to be taking the first one. I don't want to be starting
Yeah,
the run. You
yeah,
know what I mean? So like if you see my list on in our Facebook group, you will notice that I have I believe 7 guys in 10 picks. Like
yeah.
they're all together, right? So I don't want to be taking the top guy there, even though I love TJ Hawkinson. He's at the top of the list. I don't want to be grabbing them there. I think for most people, he's like the tight end 5 or 6. So I'm happy to take him in the middle of round four, at the end of round four. That's what I'd ideally like to do.
Okay. So if you look at your list, like you said, you've got one, two, three, four, five, 6 tight ends in a span of 8 picks, and most of those at the end of round 3, all the way to the middle of round 4. So I guess it's safe to say round 4 should be looked at as like the tight end round. That's how you're going to be viewing it, and most people should be viewing. When you get to round 4, you'd better have a tight end by here, because if you don't, then you're probably you're gonna have to get really lucky to get one of these top guys in round 5 or later.
Yeah, yeah. I think you might be able to get one at the top of round five. But yeah, I think like in round four, if you want a top tight end, you got to be targeting him there, in my opinion. And I think
Okay.
you should be happy to grab one there.
Yeah. Okay. You've got your top 7 rounds that we're looking at. Any guys in here that when you look at, like you mentioned, TJ Hawkinson, for example, right? You said this is a guy that I know I'm higher on than most people. Or who do you look at in your list here where you go, okay, these are the guys that I want to end up with, even if I have to trade up a little bit, a few picks in order to lock them in. Who are some of those guys in your rankings here?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Listen, so I shared my rankings with somebody who I really respect, and he pointed out some kind of like some uh,
Flaws?
I wouldn't say flaws, but just some
And by the way, that someone he respects isn't me.
it's not, no. It is a friend of the channel though. But
Anyways,
yeah, he just pointed out some odysseys in my board.
sure.
He mentioned that he was surprised that Amon Ra and Puka. He would have swapped Amon Ra and Puka. I have Puka ahead of Amon Ra, and I think that's very abnormal compared to the community.
Yeah.
And also, I'm particularly low on Brandon Ayuk, who's much higher in the community's eyes, and I'm much higher on Jackson Smith and Jigba. So those were the ones that he had pointed out to me.
Wow. Yeah, I just noticed that right now. Yeah, you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba ahead of Brandon Ayuk.
I do, yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
I recently also moved Michael Pittman pretty far down as well. So he's turning
Yes.
27 this year.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of an age cliff for a receiver where they stop gaining value. They start declining in value. So I decided to move him down, like considerably down my ranking. So I think like Ayuk, he's a very talented player. I just don't think he's a wide receiver one, and he's 26 years old, so he's getting to that age cliff as well. So I'd rather have these young guys that I think have more potential to increase in value and can give you almost as much production, if not more, in my
Hmm.
opinion. Like guys like Zay Flowers and Jordan Addison. So I have them ahead of him, which is not consensus by any means.
Yeah. You still haven't answered my question, though. I said, which guys do you like so much that when you consider how you have them ranked here, I don't think you're going to trade up to get Hawkinson at where you have him on your
No.
rankings, but who's a guy that you could see yourself trading up in order to get, like, if it's getting close to being able to pick them up in the fifth or sixth or
Hmm.
seventh round, and it's just a couple of picks, but you realize that somebody might snag them ahead of you, and you're gonna, maybe be willing to switch a seventh and an eighth round pick with somebody in order to move up just two or three slots to secure someone. Who's a guy like that you really, really like among your rankings that you really want to end up with? Like, I remember in the rookie draft,
Hmm.
for you, that guy was
Yeah.
Jermaine Burton. And like, you're thinking,
Yeah.
okay, I really want Jermaine Burton in the rookie draft, and I'll do something to move up a couple of picks if I have to secure him on my team based on where he's going. Do you have somebody like that in the first 7 rounds that when you were setting this up, thinking, okay, I know I've got this guy ranked here, but I would love to end up with this guy around here so much that I would even be willing to drop back around later on to do that?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Sorry, I missed your question there. It's a great question. There's not really somebody like that for me. I can't think of somebody off the top of my head because I'm always trying to consider value in trading back. But listen, if it's getting to the end of my tiers, then I'll always consider moving up to grab a guy at the end of my tiers, especially if it's a young player that's sliding. So like to give an example, let's say like I have Tank Dell at the bottom of one of my tiers, right? Like around the bottom of one of my receiver tiers. If it's getting to the point where like guys, like Michael Pittman and Tyreek Hill and some aging veterans are going off the board and Tank Dell is slipping and Jordan Addison's slipping, I might consider trading up for these guys who are younger and they fit my draft strategy. I might consider trading up for these guys. Same thing with like a guy like Chris Olave. Like let's say like Chris Olave, who I'm not particularly high on, but let's say he just started to slip, and like guys like Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith are going ahead of him. Maybe I'll trade up for him. So it's just about like looking at my tiers and trying to grab guys at the end of my tier. But there's no one in particular except for tight end. Except for tight end. If it's getting to the point at the end of round four, the beginning of round five, and there's only one young tight end left on my board, I'll trade
Yeah.
up to grab him.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. And that actually makes a lot of sense after we're just talking about that. All right. Anything else that you want to add based on the first 7 rounds that you've produced here on your big board? Any final thoughts that I haven't asked you about?
The one thing I will say is that if you check my big board, you'll notice that I put the rookie picks beside the rookies. So the reason I did that is for the productive struggle approach, so that you can see what like you could in your mind know the value of these positions in the startup, right? Like for example, I have Brian Thomas Jr. in the middle of round five of a startup. So when you're in the middle of round five, you can think, oh, if I pick here, it's around the 110 of a rookie pick. So if I want to trade out of this pick is worth about that value, right? It's hard for me to express exactly what that means, but like, let's say you want to get a future first round pick, okay? Let's say you want to get a future first round pick and you're sitting in round seven. You know that the player you're taking in round seven is valued at around the top of round two in rookie drafts. So you could confidently trade your seventh round startup pick for a future first round pick plus and know you're winning that trade, right? That's why I have these rookie pick values beside the players so that you can have a better idea of the value that they represent in those ranges.
Excellent point. The only thing I'll say to that, however, is I think you should take those numbers with a little bit of a grain of salt for next season, only because I think this year's draft is going to be
Yeah,
maybe not a ton better than next year's draft, but I think most people agree that this year's draft looks like it will be a little bit better. So maybe notch those numbers down by like 1 or 2 picks, maybe even 3 or 4. But
yeah,
other than that,
absolutely.
yeah, I think.
And
Mhm.
yeah, and listen, don't only target next year's rookie class. Target 2026 as well. And don't feel guilty about trying to accumulate extra value and like trade raping other people because listen, you're throwing away cash. You're giving away your first year's buy-in to do this strategy. So don't feel guilty about it. You have to win these trades. You're only playing to win trades. So keep in mind that you're tossing away money for your first year. So take that into account when you're trying to put together these trades.
All right, there you have it. First 7 rounds of Vaz's big board for a dynasty startup draft. And keep in mind that we are actually going to be doing a dynasty startup mock draft on June 15th. That might be June 14th, depending on where you are in the world. If you'd like to join in for that mock draft, join our Facebook group. There's a thread on that subject. And if you have the time, your schedule matches with us, come on in, join that mock draft with us, and we're going to dissect how everyone did in that on a later episode as well. So join our Facebook group, join that thread, and join us for the mock draft as well. Also, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time on another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks.